Jerry Rubino is a conductor, teacher, pianist, coach, singer, regarded for his diverse musical interests, engaging artistry, passionate enthusiasm for performing arts and education. Jerry founded and directs Voices 360 as an artistic director of Voices of Experience and is an artistic director, Voices of Experience, and outreach choir for senior singers to encourage lifelong learning. Staff conductor and professional singer, Minnesota Chorale, teaching artist at MacPhail Center for Music, minister at Spirit of Hope United Methodist Church, where I had the great pleasure of singing in his choir, which is nothing less than fun, and named as an editor of the Voices of Distinction series with the Hal Leonard Publishing Company. Jerry is clearly an expert on the topic today, making it work as a freelance musician. Please welcome Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't turn my phone off. That was mine. I don't know if any of you have the Ring doorbell. And a little animal runs in front of it. It goes, yeah, it just lets me know everything that's going on in front of my doorbell. So I apologize. It'll just sound like angelic music is actually happening. Thank you, Spider. I get exhausted listening to that bio. But I told Peggy that was the short one. So I guess I agree with what you said at the end, which is I think I have some reason to talk about what I have to talk about based on all of my varied interests. And I'm very, very fortunate that life has just supported all of that. And I'll say this, overall, I've been given so many phenomenal opportunities in my life. And I am extremely grateful. But they were almost always things that I had not been pursuing actively. And they would come into my life and they were like, well, it's like, oh, here it is. But now looking back, I'm kind of going, what an amazing gift that was, or what an amazing gift that was. And I was surrounded by teachers and mentors who didn't really give me options. It was more like, you will do this correctly. And then put me out on my own in order to do. So you have to learn how to do that, or you have to ask for help, or both. And I feel very, very grateful that I've gotten to do what I get to do. And so I thought I would just frankly give you a little overview of how it all started and how it's continuing. I am from Philadelphia. I know all about Drexel University. I went to Curtis Institute of Music, which is a very exclusive performance degree driven place right on Rittenhouse Square, almost in Center City. And, you know, you really know if you're from Philadelphia, you call it Center City. It is not downtown Philly, it is Center City. But then I really did not feel like I was cut out to stay. If you make it into Curtis, it's a huge gift. You're completely scholarshiped. It's a 3-year degree, and all you do is practice your instrument. You come out and you get first chairs anywhere in the world. It was one of those things, and my instrument was cello. And I got in, and I was thrilled, and then I was out of my league. I just went, I don't want this. Didn't feel right. I had always wanted to be in education. So I transferred to Temple University and was able to get my scholarship by playing cello, but then I switched and started singing in the college choir and then also being a piano major. So already I was doing soup to nuts. Because I was scholarshiped, I had time off, and I have one uncle who migrated to Minnesota. And my other uncle said, you have to get out of Southeastern Pennsylvania. You've never been anywhere, so get out of here. So he sent me dutifully to spend a summer, I can't believe he did this, with my uncle and his family. I don't mean 2 weeks, I mean the summer. So I got working with the church that he attended, and they did outdoor kids clubs and puppetry and music and everything else. I was just in my heyday, had a blast, did this for 3 years in a row. And then I had started grad school at Temple and was out here working and was offered 2 full-time jobs that I thought were ludicrous for a 22-year-old person to be offered. One was to be the minister of music at a huge church up in the northeast or northwest suburbs, with 5 choirs and 3 services and all kinds of people. And then a full-time job also directing the choir and teaching piano at Northwestern College in Roseville. I was 22. I had no idea that that was unusual until I got there. And I walked in and I was like the youngest faculty member by about 25 years. But again, it was an opportunity. I have stories about all of this, but I'm going to try to keep it. In the 1970s, church music went through a huge shift. And I have been able to prove that. Oh, bless you. Thank you. I forgot to bring mine, so thank you very much. Just last week, I put together a choir from the Minnesota Chorale to sing at Bethel Synagogue, just down the street in down Highway 100, for an all-city synagogue celebration of the 75th anniversary of statehood of Israel. And we did a soup to nuts programming, and I have spent not a whole lot of time in a synagogue, but I now have. And I found out that they went through the same transformation that many other people have gone through. So I will say that that happened. I was raised in a little bit in the Catholic Church and half in the Presbyterian Church. And both the Catholic Church with the folk mass and guitars and everything else, and then my Presbyterian Church, which I said was high church on Sunday morning and low church on Sunday night, went through contemporary that's not a word, but contemporary music came into play, and guitar was often the lead. Do you remember the New Christy Minstrels? Do you kind of go back that far? When I came to Minnesota, there was something called the Gamble folk, which is the Gamble family, and they had the exact same instrumentation. You know, a really nice alto-y singer right on the microphone. You know, she was real airy and fun, and then a guitarist and a stand-up bass player, and it was just, and they were singing words about God, and I was like, this is different, and I loved it, and I kind of went, this is really cool. So Christian music, if you will, became an industry in almost all of the religious places, you know, denominations and so forth, and I'm including synagogue, the Hebrews, as well as Catholics. I mean, everybody was getting this newer sound, and I loved it. I kind of went, this is so cool. People were starting to get in groups and travel around the country and sing gospel music in stadiums and in auditoriums and selling tickets. And some of my people were going, you don't do that. You can't do that. And I went, well, people are. And so long story short, I met 2 people from Hawaii in the late 70s who were called simply the Hawaiians. It was really weird to be in Hawaii and referred to as the Hawaiians because it sounded ridiculous. But on the mainland, it worked. And they were classically trained, and we did everything from gospel to traditional hymns to Hawaiian luau music to some sacred classics because they were classically trained. Right up my alley. And I started traveling with them, got to fly everywhere. We would be in arenas of 5, 10, 15,000 people. And I thought I was in heaven because I went, oh, you know, there was stardom to be had, kind of. I say that with an awful lot of, I'm kind of kidding because it seemed like it was the thing that you wanted to do. But I have to tell you, traveling like that was a ton of work, and it was very tiring, and you had to fly, and you had to get to the next place and unpack, and then you go to the hall, and then you set up the sound system and have a sound check and go gobble some quick food, and then, you know, 2 hours of concerts. I got to do that for almost 12 years, just on weekends, and did some recordings, and really am very grateful for that experience. For me, the best thing about it was for me to understand that God was much bigger than the way I had been raised to believe. Let's just say, because we were in many different places where God was talked about, with different traditions and different things that people were comfortable with. And I'll just leave it at that to say that I was grateful to get an expanded view rather than a contracted view. Not everyone shares that feeling because many times because of their own personal experience. My own personal experience had been looking for that. And then so when I found that and felt it was authorized, if you will, it worked for me. At the same time, in the late 70s, I heard about something called the Dale Warland Singers. The Dale Warland Singers were a fully professional choir, one of the first in this, in not only in the city, but in the country. I had sung in one in Philadelphia. They just closed. They used to be called the Philadelphia Singers. And there are professional singers in, you know, all parts of the, oh my God, I'm on camera. I just saw that.
Nobody's watching, it's just, we're just recording.
I've just been looking right over it. Rotary Club.
Doing great.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, it's just great. And Rotary Club is back, so I can see now you can see this. Dale Warland Singers. I joined it just to have a professional outlet because I was always directing choirs. I was always working in it. I thought, let's have somebody else tell me what to do. And Dale was a specialist at 20th century premieres and music and an incredible sound of a professional choir. And then I went right from singing to also playing the piano, also from being assistant conductor to arranging for the group to being the associate conductor, outreach, education. Another place where I was I just joined it just to sing, and then I was given more responsibility. And I worked with Dale off and on for 30 years, 23 with the Dale Warland Singers and 7 with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra Chorale. And we did that one together in the 2000s. And just, again, such a thrill to be able to, I was standing in front of a group of 40 people who were already singing almost perfection. It was my job to make it better. It's like, you know, when you're in that environment, you have options. You either give up or you make your ear better. You make your language better. You do your research. You figure out what it all is about. So that's the Dale Warland Singers. Also, 1985. That year, so many things happened, but I will refer to the fact that the International Market Square opened, if you might recall that. It changed from the Munsingware factory to International Market Square. And I walked in with a friend because they were very well known for their lunch. They were open for lunch and the public could go in, and I walked in, I heard a piano play. Fascinating. My friend said, "You're going to go talk to him, aren't you?" I said, "Well, of course." And I walked up and a guy named Benny Weinbeck was playing. And I said, "Hello, how are you?" And he goes, barely said more than a hello back to me. And he goes, "Do you play?" And I went, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "Oh, great, I need a sub. You want to do it? It's $60 for lunch. I mean, for the hour and a half, and then we'll you get lunch." I said, okay, give me your card. And then I sat down and had lunch, and I thought, what have I done? I had learned to improvise at church. I will tell you this quick little story. I was fascinated by the pianist at my church. She only played on Sunday nights. That's why I call it, you know, it was much more gospel-y. If we had, you know, that I would have demonstrated that one for you. But the point is, I remember going up and looking at what, you know, she had music rack up there. I looked at it and she was looking at the hymn book. And the hymn book just goes, you know, 4 notes and that's all that was there. And she was going all over the piano. And I went, what? My mind was blown. My mother, bless her heart, was just, she didn't have a clue either. But she said, "Honey, you can figure that out." And I listened, I copied, I listened, I played. I must have driven my parents crazy because I played the same chord progressions over and over and over as a kid. But I got such satisfaction from it that I loved it. So I learned how to improvise gospel music. But here's Benny playing, you know, jazz out of the standard big book. And he was a very progressive jazz player. I will call myself a jazz player today, but not a progressive jazz player. I am a singer. I like hearing a melody when I'm playing, and when I improvise a little bit, the melody isn't terribly far away. And so it was interesting because at the Market Square, some people really loved Benny and he was their favorite, and other people really liked me because I was their favorite. And it proves that different people like different styles and different genres of music. And from that, I got, people were asking me to play weddings and memorial services, come to a party, blah, blah, blah. 3 years later, Dayton Hudson Corporation came calling and hired me and one other person to play 2 weeks of over the noon hour at the downtown store right in front of JB Hudson. And they asked us to do all Gershwin. Well, I love Gershwin. And so that was an easy job. And I only had to do 1 week of 2. And the public's response was so overwhelming that it became a regular job. And at the height of that, there were 15 of us playing the piano at the 4 different stores. Downtown had 2 locations, and then Roseville and South Dale also had a piano. And God, that was a fun job. I missed that job terribly because I learned how to really fake, and I also learned how to talk at the same time as I was playing, which would make people crazy. They come up and they didn't want to talk, and I keep playing. I talk to them while they're going, can we talk to you? And I'm going, sure, talk to me. And I said, if I have to stop, I'll go forward, and then I'll talk to you again. And it used to be so much fun. Best story I have of that is the time a little tiny kid, an African-American kid, came up, and the piano lid was wide open, and he was at the other end of the piano and just looked through, and he was wide-eyed, and he was like, I said, come on around. And he came around a little further. He didn't come all the way around. And he said, hey man, where's the CD player? I said, I really want you to come all the way around and watch. It was so much fun to be able to do that. Also, the number of dignitaries who would walk by and sometimes really want, for political reasons, to come up and introduce themselves. And other times people,
my funniest thing is when people pretend this is a post, and this is ladies' lingerie. I mean, that's where it was right there. So people might walk past this and they'd be very intrigued about this post. But I could tell that they were listening to what I was doing. And
it just was so fun to be downtown among people who were from so many different walks of life, wandering through, and then the music just kind of gave them something to do. Dayton's had it. They understood, and I miss them. A couple other things have happened as a result of my arranging for the Dale Warland Singers. It attracted the attention at the right time of the Hal Leonard Corporation, which is the world's largest publishing company. And they invited me to be an editor and try to find more people. Again, publishing keeps adapting and changing. The latest adaptation is that we have so much music that we can pick up on our tablets or on our computers, that there's less printed music coming out, and we're going through a shift of that. That also has given me a chance to travel a lot. I do combinations of speaking and teaching while helping to sell music, and so it works all around. I also did the same thing for Oxford University Press. I've always worked in church. I've been at Spirit of Hope right down the street longer than anything else I think I've done now. This is my 33rd year, and I'm grateful that they have allowed me to develop a program there. I miss Spider singing choir. It's been a while since he's been back, because he would always watch my feet. He used to sit right here, and the organ is here, and he would sit there, and I'd see his head disappear, and he'd be down there watching my feet. It's
Truly fascinating that you could play with both hands and both feet.
I started studying. I didn't know what I was doing, in 11th grade. Now, I just have to say, I'm hoping to do this at my church, but Spirit of Hope. When I was in 11th grade, my church offered me a scholarship to learn to play the organ. So the organist at my church was engaged to teach me on Saturday afternoons. Well, he was paid for an hour, and I usually spent 2.5 or 3 with him. He was so generous. I learned how to conduct from the organ. I learned how to play Bach. Bach was my very first piece I had to play, a prelude and fugue. Now that involves both feet, both hands, and balancing on your butt. I mean, that's what you do as an organist. And it was, again, I was just thrown into this. And after 4 years of this, I felt like I might be ready to go on and do it on my own. Two other things. MacPhail School of Music, MacPhail Center for Music, called me up right after I left the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra Chorale, and they started a new program there called MacPhail Music for Life. And it really, if you know anything about MacPhail, they have a huge early childhood division, and they have lots of education for children through adults, but there's very little for seniors, especially people in that in-between age, not in a nursing home, but recently retired, just those people who now it's my turn era. And I get a lot of people who do that. We started a choir called Voices of Experience. And it's a great choir. We're up to about 65. We rehearse downtown during the day. So there's just unique things that we get to do. I also have gotten to teach some classes for that same age group. And finally, the Minnesota Chorale. I joined them on the conducting staff as a professional singer, and we got to go to South Africa 5 years ago when the orchestra went for, the birthday anniversary of Nelson Mandela. And we did concerts here celebrating that, which was very much an not only inter-spiritual, but it really involved a huge choir and a lot of presence from the north side. And then we took that and did the same thing in South Africa. And again, music becoming the great communicator. What does this have to do with survival? A lot, you know, by not, my church doesn't give me any benefits except some vacation, but it's a regular job. MacPhail gives me no benefits. You know, I've always had to do my own benefits, my own health insurance, take care of all that sort of thing. And the one thing that's the hardest for people to remember or realize is they figure I can just show up and, well, we'll just pay you for your time. Well, they need to know what my time really is, because time really, three things count for time. Showing up is one, but two is my personal experience that I bring to the table, and three is my own preparation. And people always forget about that. I'm happy to say that some special events are coming back. I was just invited to play the piano for 4 hours. I'm a little out of shape. I hadn't done that for a long time, but I went to the Swedish Institute downtown and I was playing for a wedding reception that was in a small little room, about this size. It was really quite intimate, lots of requests, and I miss those jobs. But you know, if you're going to do those, you're going to have a library of favorites, because people are going to ask, and they did, and I do. So it was really rather fun. When people ask me what I do, my usual answer is to ask them, which day of the week do you want to know of it? Because literally every day is a completely different schedule. And I'm grateful to tell you that I turned down 2 things today, because Peggy would have killed me if I changed this date again. But I did get asked about 2 different things for this morning, which I did turn down. But this afternoon, I will be at Orchestra Hall with the Minnesota Chorale. We are in rehearsals for this week's subscription concerts, which is featuring a brand new work by 2 phenomenally talented African-American people from Washington, D.C. They arrived in town last night. We had our first rehearsal with them. It was ridiculously exciting. It's a brand new piece that was commissioned by the city of Minneapolis and Minnesota Orchestra, and it is to acknowledge all things surrounding George Floyd, and to try to put a positive spin on this rather than some of the negative spin that goes all around it. And after living with, I had an African-American roommate for 11 years, and he sensitized me to so many things. The biggest one I do want to say is that unless you make a big noise, you're not always heard. And that's what I'm hopeful, that it doesn't it doesn't sound argumentative, but it sounds more positive in bringing people together. That's hard to do. And I'm thrilled to be able to try to do that through music. Tonight is, I should be more excited about this, but, and I am. I am grateful that I'm preparing a chorus of 75 people from the Minnesota Chorale. In addition, we suddenly have got these extra things to do. So last week was the Jewish thing, and then this week is yet something else. Sunday night at Target Center, Andre Bocelli is going to be in concert, and I am preparing the chorus to sing backup with him. So we had 2 rehearsals last week, and we have 2 this week. And I have the music if you want to look at it. It's are you okay?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I've been at the right place at the right time. And my job with Minnesota Chorale is to be director of special projects. Well, this is a special project. And of course, they didn't call us until about 6 weeks ago. They just, oh, we're looking for a chorus. Can you put something together? So normally we would not have such a crazy week of trying to have so many rehearsals hacked in. But this is the way you do it. When people call you, you juggle and you find the calendar and you go, well, I could do it here. Well, I can't do it there. When can you do it? And you know how much time it takes to juggle all of that. To try to cobble a living as a full-time freelance musician, I get up not every morning. Some days I do get up every morning. Am I saying? Yeah, I do. I realized what I said. I don't always get out of bed and say an affirmation, but I'm trying. And that is, look what I get to do today. I grew up as a kid being very insecure about music and feeling like a nerd and just so many insecurities that I'm sure many of us have for various reasons, when we're young. And but as an adult, they don't always necessarily go flipping away, and when you're doing something different every single day, there is a fear of what have I forgotten? Or what detail did I not get to? And the best thing for me to start with is, gosh, I get to do this today. So I get to come talk to you, and I get to do these 2 rehearsals this afternoon, and I've been as prepared as possible. This morning I was trying to we have not had any communication with anybody from the Bocelli camp at all. So I have been going to YouTube, trying to find recordings of him doing the same arrangements in various other parts of the country. And then I'm listening and writing in my score, I think he's going to sing a high B here. And then we have to kind of come in after this E major chord, and then we have to find this F sharp. I mean, it's all the details that you have to learn in order to do what seems like a piece of cake. So I wanted to stop early enough so that if you had questions, I would love to answer questions. I did talk about this when I was invited to Edina Rotary. They asked me to talk about this very thing. I did much more playing. I keep looking as if there was a piano here. You know what I'm saying? But I really thought that it might be interesting for you to hear how someone puts a living together as a freelance artist. I have been offered several full-time jobs and came this close to one of them. It was teaching full-time at Carleton College. I was that close because I taught there part-time for 3 years. But the timing wasn't right. But other than that, I just love the variety. And I'm proud to say that every day something different is happening. And I hope I can do it for a lot longer. My most significant teacher and mentor did this until he was 86. And then he said, oh, okay, I think I really need to slow down. And I went, well, he was just a fireball of energy and he had good health until then. So I'm hoping for the same thing. Thoughts, questions, anything that I can respond to?
Any idea I can get a free ticket for going to Coachella? I'll carry your luggage.
I'm assuming it's.
I'll be begging.
I don't even get in free. Working it, but all I get to do is go into the sound check on Sunday afternoon. And I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I really don't care. I've been in part of so many huge arena concerts, and I'm very familiar with his work, and I'm proud of my singers and I'll call them my singers. It's the Minnesota Chorale, and it's a terribly gifted group. But, and man, tickets are expensive. You know, they really are. And Target Center is not my favorite venue either to watch a concert. But, you know, I am proud that I'm getting to do it.
So when you have that, when you say you're an editor for that. Hal Leonard. So what is the process of that? Do they send you a piece of music that somebody has written and you have to critique it or how does that happen?
That's a great question. You know, it's different with, you know, different people who work for the publishing company. I was hired to solicit other arrangers that I knew to arrange things for the company at a certain level. They make their bread and butter selling music of a simpler, easier, high school, educational, even junior high and elementary. And mine is more featured towards the really good high school. Now, we have a lot of them around here in our metro area, but community choruses and the more professional. So I'm edited to work with the arrangers to kind of say, this voicing works, make this more complicated, I thank God I have not had to get down to the actual, there's a strong music software program called Finale that almost everybody uses, and it is, there's a specific format that they like for Hal Leonard so that everything looks standard, and I have had to do that. I am not anywhere near as quick as the people who do it 8 hours a day. But so I have done that, but that's what I mean. That's my.
You've got upscale music in here.
I do. And it's a very, very fortunate position to be in. The reason I got to do it is because I did it for Oxford University Press, and Oxford does not cater to junior high school stuff. They do really top drawer. Sorry, I mean,
So when you
high
go to
quality.
what would the top line? Because who would be the publisher of the music they have on the stand at the Minnesota Center?
Well, they wouldn't sell music. They would go to the publishing companies like Hal Leonard, or they would go to Uzi and Hawks, or they would go to, there's all kinds of publishing companies that publish all the standard music. Peters, it does a lot of classical music. I mean, there's quite a list.
So there is a company that sells that entire orchestra's music at that level.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Is there a collection of freelance musicians who band together for resources or to say, hey, this account really helped me, and you know, so that you can share information with each other?
I'll tell you one band that exists that doesn't do a dang thing for us, and that's the Musicians Union. They just set the fees for the Minnesota Orchestra, and you know, it doesn't do a thing for singers or freelancers. I would say that thanks to Facebook, we have all kinds of Facebook small groups that are rather active. And that is a really cool. Church Musicians has one, jazz piano player. I mean, there's one for just about everybody. You have to go for a hunt for them, but I have found that to be a nice place to share ideas. I really don't know about not committees, but you know, small groups that meet, you know, in an informal way like this. The only one I used to do when I was in college was, we had one called Diva Breakfast. And mostly women were part of that, and about 4 or 5 guys were invited as well. So
Is that an acronym for something, or is that?
oh no, divas.
He'll explain it to you later.
Divas went out for breakfast.
Give him an opportunity.
I have to tell you that I have had the privilege of meeting the Steels. And I was at a concert of theirs recently, and close enough that I could see Fred on the keyboard in that. And I looked, and all that he had there for music was like a typed line.
Yeah.
There
Just the
was
melody, yeah.
nothing. It didn't have any notes, anything. And played the whole evening. Amazing.
It is
I
amazing.
just had never experienced something, and then for you to have that talent was.
Well, I do want to say something about that. I love JD and I love Fred. First time I met Fred, I was music directing a show at Chanhassen, and Fred came in as a last minute replacement. Fred came up. This is not a slam. It's just description. Fred can't read music, nor can his brother JD. I mean, they do everything by ear, and they are phenomenal at what they do. And they are limited in what they can do. The same thing is true of a classically trained musician. Classically trained musician, if they absolutely must have the score in front of them, then they'll be fabulous at that because they're used to being disciplined in order to figure out how to do that. But if they need to kind of improvise or wing it or anything like that, they have absolutely no skill in doing that. And that's another reason for crossover.
What about the younger brother? Did he read music? But is it Jimmy? We can't remember his name right now, but, because he's,
I don't know JD and Brett.
oh, okay, there's one more and he's the younger